If I'm not mistaken, one of the jumps we did was a world record.
Oh, yes.
In Oxnard.
Gary going across the river, I think. And now, some of these quote-unquote daredevil people will promote something like that for weeks, you know, build it, Evel Knievel kind of folks, build it up, we're going to try to jump over this thing. These guys did that in the course of a day's work. Jump, okay, take two, go back, jump the other car, jump the police car. And they were doing that all day long. Then they go off and do something else. But it was a world record jump, and you can see it in the title shots of the Dukes.
When we shot in Georgia, it was this time of year, so the days were really short, and it rained all the time. Remember, it was
snowed once.
And it rained. When it rains on that red Georgia clay, it is slicker than a ball tire semi on a mile of wet asphalt. And we were in the General Lee, and Richie was towing us in the camera car, and it got slick, but we'd been working with him for a couple of weeks, so it couldn't have been the first show. And we knew that he told us, he said, "This is going to get a little weird out here, but don't worry about it. I got it under control." And in there, you know what the expression "keep it between the ditches" means, because there's a ditch on either side of the road. So we're in the car, and I think I had the brown corduroy thing on, so that was Repo Man. And all of a sudden the car starts to slide to one side, and I'm driving. Like that, and it was a car that had the full cage, because the first General Lees had the picture cars had the full cages in them, and all of a sudden we go slap up against one thing over there, which means the tire's down in the ditch, and then boom, it popped back up, and then slap, we slapped on the other side on mine, and I know when I see the shot, I can tell when it is, because I'm a pretty tall guy, and I'm sitting I'm sitting down there like that, and it looks like I'm about, you know, your nephew's size, and I remember it was during that, and people have said, "How come you look so short in that car?" And that's why. It's because I was hanging on for dear life.
You're right about John being the driver on the thing, because he used to be very generous with his driving. Not only was he very good at it, but he was very generous. People would come to the set, and he'd take them for a little spin around the back lot. And my older son was about 5 at the time, and he came to visit the set all dressed up like Bo.
Oh.
And John says, "Come on, let's go for a little ride." And he goes, "Okay," and put him in the General, and then a cloud of dust. He was gone just in a flash. And it was 20 or 30 minutes before he came sliding back into the Hazzard Square. And Ryan gets out of the car like this, with his big wide eyes, and kind of half smile, and said,
I love it. That's so much fun.
"We went fast."
What's your fondest memory, Sonny? Do you have any memories?
Don't tell him.
My fondest memory, I think it was when Daisy was. I was talking to Daisy, and she was explaining to me how good her cousins were, and
I was.
Yeah, the cameraman cut it after a while, but your blouse was open a little bit, you know, and it was
That was your favorite movie?
That was my favorite, you know, but
not your favorite memory. Your favorite memory.
That was my favorite, both.
Very quick.
Yeah.
Well, I can't top that.
Yes, you can.
Rod Amato asked me, he says, "Can you do some of that CB stuff, you know, CB stuff?" We're down in Georgia, you know, and I still have it. I wrote it on the back of an envelope. I wrote this one. Breaker one, might be crazy, but I ain't dumb. Crazy cooter coming at you, and that's why I would always pick up the CB and say, breaker one, might be crazy, but I ain't dumb. Crazy cooter coming at you, and the old Duke boys home with a Hazzard net. Come on. Lost sheep, you got your ears on? Years later, I'm going down the street to my basketball game, and there's some kids playing on the other side of a fence in a yard. And I hear this kid go, breaker one, crazy cooter coming at you. And at that point, I realized, you know, what an important part of Americana we had become. And it was a really, really good feeling. And
the whole memory of the Dukes of Hazzard to me was a real blessing, because I got to be a part of a unit that brought a lot of happiness to this whole world. I'm very proud to have been part of it. That's it.
I'll second that. For me, it was a double blessing, just getting the call that told me I was going to get to be a part of this and to share this, not only for the years that we made it, but who was to know we were going to get to share so much for so long. that was my happiest and fondest memory, was getting the call to say I was going to get to be a part of this, and to fit in with such a magnificent crowd of people that, like Ben says and like Jimmy says, we all were able to be on the same page and to create something of joy. There's so much tragedy on TV these days that we were able to create something that brings happiness and joy. And thanks to the Dukes of Hazzard, I have enough money to last me the rest of my life. so long as I don't live past next Thursday.
A thing that always stands out in my mind was in Georgia, in front of the Boar's Nest. So it was early on, and somebody drove by in an El Camino, I think, and blew that horn. Yeah.
Oh.
And Paul Picard, I think it's the only time I ever remember Paul Picard, other than behind a desk, got up and grabbed a Teamster and chased that kid down and bought that horn from him. And that's where the
Is that right?
That's right.
came from. So that's such a huge part of the show. The car flying through the air and that horn happening, and if it weren't for Paul really being on his game that day, I'm proud to have been just been there when that happened.
Shortly after we finished the fifth episode, I went to Mexico, and I got a phone call from Paul Picard, and said, "When can you get back in town?" And I said I'd be back in maybe a month or so. He said, "Well, get back as soon as you can. We've been picked up for 22." Now that is my favorite memory.
Were you surprised?
Nope, I wasn't surprised at all.
I would like to insert here, with all of this beauty, it was also very, very funny. Yeah. I've done a lot of other things, but this one is, well, it was funny. It was fun. My God, the Waltons, I was so dear you couldn't stand it. You know? But now look, I'm crying because this was fun.
And I have to say that the Dukes of Hazzard for me, and everybody that was on the Dukes of Hazzard, and until this day, remain family with me, every single one of you. And John, my little brother, who I always got to bail out of trouble whenever he had some kind of girl trouble or something, or he didn't think he was being a good boy, and I said, "No, you're being a good boy, you're a good guy." And I mean, all the things.
Nice cover.
But I
See,
had
she's still watching my back.
so much fun. I had so much fun with everybody, and I mean, it was a job, but it was so much more than that to me. It taught me so much, and I really learned about life, and I learned about relationships and getting along for a really long time with a lot of people, and it was the greatest. And everybody gave me so much love and gave me so much. It just changed my entire life and the way I look at life.
You know, the one character in the show we haven't mentioned was the one that embodies the spirit of the show, you know, and probably is the most famous of all the performers on the show. And that's the General Lee.
Son of a gun! Bomber! Watch your ears. Some America. Gonna do a yell.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get them, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, they wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.